Hello watch enthusiasts! On November the 9th will occur the biennial Only Watch auction, a highlight auction of one-off watches from some of the most illustrious names in the industry created purely for this event. Hosted in Geneva this time, these watches are sold for charity in aid of research on Duchenne muscular dystrophy, whilst the event itself has raised over 40 million Swiss francs so far. Due to this remarkable event and the phenomenal watches made for it which have now been announced, I would like to discuss several watches amongst those due to appear in the auction, which have impressed me for mechanical or stylistic reasons. In this video I would like to focus on watches which are not simply redesigns of existing pieces, but radically new or at least unexpected from the brand which produced them. I have also included a few pieces in the intro which don't feature in the main video, such as the new ceramic Tudor Black Bay and Zenith Primero A386 with a new dial. But before I begin the video, I would like to encourage you to share, like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video or find it useful or interesting. Also, do follow me on Instagram at the address which is now on the screen to be able to access content unavailable on the channel, such as watches I may see during my daily life and previews of content on the channel. From Patek Philippe we have a new and, it must be said, unexpected version of the Grandmaster Chime, the most complicated Patek Philippe wristwatch ever produced, which was first released in 2014 to accompany the 175th anniversary of the brand. This 47.7mm timepiece, which is a full 16.07mm thick, with a rotating case hinged at the lug to allow for the viewing of both dials, is now offered as a unique stainless steel watch, lighter than the gold versions previously available. This will also be the most rare of versions of the Grandmaster Chime, with several pieces of the other references being produced, whilst this will remain a unique timepiece. Another curious aspect of this watch is the variation in dial colour and finish, previously an aspect identical across both sides. On the front of the watch, which displays the time, chiming alarm, double power reserves, date, second time zone and moon phase, is a salmon dial with black gold Breguet style numerals and hands. Meanwhile, the back of the watch operates it courtesy of the caliber 300 GS AL 36-750 QIS FUS IRM. Its 8 years of development and its 1,366 parts, shows the perpetual calendar and time on an ebony black base with gold hands. Of course, this is no new watch, but will certainly excite Patek Philippe enthusiasts due to its rarity and the vast array of complications. And to learn more about this specific piece, do have a look at my video which I produced recently, speaking specifically about Patek Philippe's milestones, in which I speak about this very watch. From Breguet we have a truly new standard in the world of vintage watch remakes, with their only watch edition of the Breguet Type 20, their iconic flyback pilot's watch produced for the French Air Force from 1954. This stainless steel pilot's watch shares the exact dimensions of the early first generation Type 20, with a 38.3mm case, which is 13.9mm thick. The similarities don't end there either, with its onion crown and brushed case back marked in a very similar way to the stamped ones on the originals from the 50s. Likewise, the bezel is left plain with a single marker and narrow rim, rather than offering the full graduations of the modern watch beside the heavily domed crystal. The dial is another throwback, with an aged and grainy caramel surface and painted markers, whilst the white loomed hands share the peculiar shape of the original with a leaf form to the seconds, with loom on both the front of the hand and the counterweight. Perhaps most interesting, however, is the movement, which is a Veltro 235, one of the actual movements used on the original, which is no longer produced today. It offers manual winding, a flyback chronograph function, column wheel and lateral clutch, whilst being refurbished and prepared to modern standards for this timepiece. And so in this unique timepiece, it's wholly possible that Breguet have created the ultimate Type 20 for the purist and the lover of vintage military watches, especially from this aviation realm. A brand which is often viewed by enthusiasts and journalists as the future of high-horology is Akrivia, a brand producing distinctive and exquisitely crafted pieces. This is exactly what has been made for Only Watch 2019 with the Chronomètre Contemporain Only Watch. This takes the 38mm by 9.5mm thick case of the standard production piece and remakes it in platinum from the famous casemaker J.P. Hagman. The dial has also seen development and is hammered before being given a blue-grey Grand Feu enamel coating to give a rich colour and retain the standout 1940s-esque design of the standard watch. Mechanically, this one-off model is just as spectacular as any other Akrivia, as the movement is characteristically symmetrical, with the spring barrel being mounted at the top of the movement, whilst the balance cock is mirrored on the opposite side of the movement. The detailing is beyond obsessive, as the lower plates include perlage and the upper have exquisite striping consistent across the different components. The caliber RR01 is a mechanical marvel in its own right, as it derives 100 hours of power reserve from a single spring barrel, whilst its accuracy is given by a large weighted balance wheel and a Breguet overcoil hairspring, and can be set by hacking the watch, which allows the seconds to be jumped to 0. Overall, it's easy to see the wonder behind this watch, especially in this unique configuration, and I'm certain, considering the appreciation for Akrivia which is developing day by day, this watch will do very well in the auction. One of the enduring highlights of Only Watch has been the presence of FP Journe, with a series of different and mechanically unique watches in tantalum, a blue precious metal with a very high hardness. This year is no exception with the release of the Astronomic Blue, a unique prototype with a 44 by 13.75mm case with, despite an immense array of features, only 2 controls, a crown and a slide on the opposite side of the case. Looking through the crystal, one can see a dial both characteristic of Journe, with those stretched hands and playful but oddly 19th century text elements, and utterly novel due to the movement used. One sees 2 guilloche subdials, of which the right displays the hours in 2 different time zones, and the left the sidereal time, which is the time judged by the movement of the stars rather than the sun. Otherwise, the dial includes a power reserve indicator, moon phase, and my favourite feature, a display of the sunrise and sunset. Shown by a set of moving shutters, this provides a truly beautiful way to show the length of a day with a moving disc. Of course, the front of the watch also displays deadbeat seconds, an interesting complication for a watch of this sort. The watch is made yet more wonderful by the view of the 18-karat gold movement from the rear, with a visible constant force system, tourbillon to feed the deadbeat seconds on the dial, and the equation of time. Around this one sees the minute repeater mechanism, and sliders around the edge show the annual calendar and zodiac, a very innovative way and very intuitive way of showing these aspects of the watch. Evidently, therefore, this truly is a remarkable piece, both mechanically and conceptually as a unique timepiece from FP Journe, this watchmaker able to incorporate the past into the present and even the future. And I must admit, this is also my favourite watch from the auction, which seems to be a common sentiment amongst those looking at the watches being presented. A watchmaker for whom I have a long-term admiration is Konstantin Chaykin, who's based in Russia. His work, ranging from extremely playful ETA-based pieces to absolutely stunning higher-end watches, shows something completely different to the industry which so many of us are accustomed to. For Only Watch, this maker has created the Joker Selfie, a watch which develops the Joker concept from the brand, which displays the time through 2 moving eyes and the moon phase with a tongue. The difference here is that the watch forms a self-portrait of the watchmaker himself, with the loop around one of the eyes, whilst Russian bulat steel is used for the 42 by 13.7mm case. Complications are hidden on the dial as well. When this watch is held horizontally, the right eye will close, and Chaykin's own Joker emojis will appear in a window behind the logo to display the day of the week. Mechanically, the watchmaker's origins remain visible, as Chaykin has used a Soviet manual movement, updated to high-horology standards in terms of operation and finishing alike. This gives a 46-hour power reserve with 32 joules and forms a pleasant touch to represent its maker. As a whole package, this may be an overlooked piece in the lineup, because its distinguishing features do only appear when they are looked for, but as a whole concept with regards to the choice of movement, the exquisite finishing throughout, it must be said, and the subtle choices with regards to the design and different components, I think this really is an interesting model, and one which is growing a fan base in terms of owners won over by the productions and the models produced by this particular Russian watchmaker. So I think this really is one to look out for when the auction takes place in November. A watch which caught my attention due to innovation and reverence to the past, both of which were provided in equal measure, was the Andersen Genève Montre Tact for Only Watch. This is a development of their existing line, and is intended to follow the 18th century principle, in terms of etiquette, that consulting one's watch was rude. As a result, this watch moves the time display to the position between the lugs with a rotating ring, thus allowing you to simply look down at your wrist, rather than having to rotate the watch in an obvious manner. This also allows the dial to be freed up for its full decoration, with an image created for the enjoyment of the owner under an anti-reflective sapphire crystal. This complication is added to an existing Swiss automatic movement within the 42mm 18-karat gold case of the piece, and is controlled via a crown which is placed on the case back, as is seen on certain vintage watches, rather than allowing the crown to upset the appearance through its placement on the side. The case itself is also decorated very elegantly, with a drum-shaped form and cannelure produced without modern technology on the sides. With this watch, one really can see the human craftsmanship, and the case back is not laser etched or stamped, but rather engraved with a handmade sort of process, which does require a certain amount of skill. And so as a product, therefore, this is perhaps not a mainstream piece from an illustrious brand which many will recognise, but does offer something genuinely different, and with a very thoughtful and I think beautifully executed design. With regards to high-end chronographs, Montblanc has provided a truly stunning range in recent years, which is continuing with this 1858 split-second chronograph-only watch. And housed in a completely new 44mm titanium case, this piece breathes new life into the 1930s military chronograph, with an exquisite blue agate dial, which features a fumée effect. The dial printing is marvellous, with red accents increasing legibility and matching the attrapante hand. On the edge of the dial is a telemeter which would historically have been used to establish the distance from artillery shots, whilst a tachymeter spirals around the centre of the dial to read both high and low speeds due to this snail-shaped form. At the heart of this watch is the Minerva caliber MB16.31, a manually wound monopusher chronograph with a split-second function operated via a different pusher. In my view, this is one of the most beautiful calibers to be produced in recent years, with a more vintage look to a movement from Patek Philippe or Elang and Journe due to the many levers operating its column wheel, for example. And the addition of a column wheel to the rattrapante assembly adds yet another layer of fascination. Of course, this watch isn't entirely new, but nonetheless provides a staggeringly beautiful setup with the modern addition of titanium to this particular mix. And the movement decoration is truly superb throughout, as we've come to expect from these recent Montblanc, which really is showing a new side to this brand, which I think for many years was dismissed as not really being a true watch brand, but they really are coming into their own, and I think this only watch offering is a fantastic demonstration of that. Maurice Lacroix is a brand which, in my opinion, doesn't receive enough praise for its watches, many of which have shown interesting and creative complications at very reasonable prices. However, their offering to the Only Watch auction really adds something new to their range, as a new version of a watch released earlier in the year. This is the Aikon Mercury Only Watch, a piece which follows the lines of their Aikon collection, with the same design of case which has been a sort of a revival of their 90s designs, here seen in brushed and polished titanium with a 44mm diameter, a first in fact for this model. The design is very novel, with a skeletonized dial, floating small second track at 6, and blued hands to match visible movement components, another aspect only seen on this particular timepiece. At the core of the watch is the caliber ML225, a Sellita SW200 with a bespoke module above it, which has taken 3 years to perfect. Through the use of 2 snail cams, one for the hours and the other for the minutes, and weighted components, the hand's able to fall to gravity when not being used. However, if the watch is turned to be read by its user, the hands will jump to the correct time locations due to gravity based upon this new system. And this gives a unique complication which you simply wouldn't see elsewhere. Whilst at the more affordable end of the lot to be sold, this model does promise to give drama to a more accessible area of watchmaking. And admittedly this watch does use a Sellita movement within it, but I must say I like what Maurice Lacroix have done with this piece to really bring it to life with a complication which is both useless but also fantastic fun for an owner, which I think at the base of things really is the heart of buying a watch, and if you can't enjoy a watch then really there's very little point to owning it. One piece which I just had to include in this video is not a watch at all, but rather a very imaginative desk clock which really takes to heart the idea of using the sail to help children suffering from muscular dystrophy. This is a piece produced by the partnership of MB&F, the remarkably imaginative brand of Max Büsser, and Lippi, the famous and highly historic clockmaker. The clock in question is a 30.8cm tall legged clock with a small figure sitting atop it. Its name is Tom and T-Rex. The general idea is that it shows a young boy afflicted by disease offered a glimpse into a different world through the Murano glass clock dial in blue and the ball in his hands whilst being transported by a dinosaur beneath him. And whilst this, it must be said, is a peculiar concept, I find the idea extremely charming and a sobering reminder of the gravity of the need for research into the harm caused by Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Mechanically, the clock is powered by a Lippi 8-day power reserve movement which operates at 18,000 vibrations per hour with 17 joules. With the balance on the top, the movement appears to find its root in carriage clocks, which is really typical of this particular brand, yet the visibility provided by the large open spaces within the clock gives an unparalleled level of wonder to any viewer. And of course this is no practical item, yet the concept and the execution truly is faultless, as we've come to expect from both MB&F and Lippe in their respective categories. And so I think it's wonderful that these two have come together, as they have in the past, to produce something quite so wonderful, which really does celebrate the cause for which this auction is taking place. And with that, I will conclude the video here. But as a final note, I do think it's fantastic that there are such events and such initiatives as this auction. And in the past I have noticed that people have been somewhat mixed in terms of their feelings towards this idea, in terms of it being the spoils of the rich. But in the same way, I think that support for an important cause is support for an important cause. So I think in any form it's important that events of this nature do exist. But I'll be curious to hear what you have to say about the various pieces I spoke about in this video, and which ones were perhaps your favourite. So if you enjoyed this video, then do please like, share and subscribe to help the channel, and also to be able to see more videos and content here in future. So thank you very much for watching. This is I'm on the Watch Guy, out.